starting from the morning game in Frankfurt, Germany, between the Colts and the Patriots, all the way to the end versus the uh, New York Jets and the Las Vegas Raiders, right? So let's start from the top, right? So the Colts and the Patriots. Oh, and again, man, hope y'all are doing well out there, man. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday. And for you guys whose team lost yesterday, get well soon, right? So, so starting with the Frankfurt game at 8:30 a.m. between the Colts and the Patriots. I feel really bad for those Germans, man. I feel really bad for them. Just because let me put myself on screen here. So yeah, so I feel really bad for those Germans just because they probably spent a lot of money, depending on how much tickets are for NFL games in Germany overseas, right? You came all the way there to watch a 10-6, a 10-6 football game. That's kind of what they do in soccer, don't it? You know what I'm saying? 10-6, that low scoring game. But what can you expect out of two teams that are middling to low tier? Like we know what the Colts could have been if they were running on all four cylinders. Right. I think their rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson is out for the whole season with a shoulder injury. So now you're relying on Gardner Minshew, Jonathan Taylor, for whatever reason. Like you gave him the money, and now he just hasn't really seen much of the field. Hasn't really made that much of an impact. I feel sorry for the guys and girls who have him on their fantasy and were having high hopes for this guy, but it just hasn't been that way, right? So we know what the Colts are and what they aren't. Now, as far as the New England Patriots, for the fourth time this season, Mac Jones has gotten benched for Bailey Zappi. It doesn't look good because if y'all were following the media trail last week, they were talking about how Bill Belichick's job could be on the line just solely because of the performance of the New England Patriots. Now, mind you, the Patriots have not been out of games this season, so it's not to say that they're completely terrible like a certain team in New York that got stomped yesterday 49-10, but we won't go there yet, right? So when we talk about the New England Patriots, like we're talking about a team that's probably on the cusp of rebuild. Like you spent you spent a 15th pick in the first round a couple years ago on Mac Jones, hasn't really been panning out. You got rid of Josh McDaniels and you brought in Bill O'Brien to try to, get him more comfortable in the New England offense, and it just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. Like for whatever reason, Mac Jones just wants to keep giving the ball to the other team, warranting why he's been benched for the third, fourth time this year. Now, if you're asking me if the New England Patriots should get rid of Bill Belichick this year, I don't think so. Just because, just because of who Bill Belichick is. He's brought this franchise so much success. Now, obviously, we know at this point it was mainly just due to Tom Brady. We know what Bill Belichick has done on the defensive side in many of these Super Bowls. Like, for example, the Atlanta Super Bowl, they pretty much outscored the Patriots like 28-3, 28-7, something like that in the first half. And then Bill Belichick comes out and they really don't score anything, and allowing Tom Brady to make that like miraculous comeback. And then you also see where Tom Brady carries the New England defense in a lot of Super Bowls, i.e. that Philadelphia Super Bowl where we won 41-38. Yes, Tom Brady threw 505 yards on us, which is going to lead me to a later point in this video. So just follow along with me. So Tom Brady carried the New England Patriots in that Super Bowl, throwing 505 yards, still losing, obviously. But we know that, one probably couldn't do without the other. But if we were to just look in hindsight, which is the best vision, they say, Tom Brady has been the reason and the focal point of why New England has been successful as it's been the past 2 decades, and what they have become ever since the departure of Tom Brady, right? And we can go into a whole story about that. But the New England Patriots, they have a lot of questions to answer. Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi going into the future. Bill Belichick is already saying this is a game to game decision. So we'll see what happens with that. But Bill Belichick, if you're asking me if you're going to let him go, like, don't do it right now. I think he deserves to be pardoned at the end of the season, and then of course you start the rebuild from there. I don't know how much cap they're going to have going into next season. That's something that we need to look into. If you know it, leave in the comments. So definitely a lot of questions answered about the New England Patriots. So on to the next game. We talk about the Ravens and the Browns. If you watched my last video, I talked about the Browns and how they are like one of those upcoming teams that you have to watch during this Eagles bye week. Well, Eagles, Chiefs, Dolphins bye week, just because that division is really tough. Like we seen yesterday, the Bengals and the Texans game, which we will get into later on after this point here with the Browns and the Ravens. Man, I'm just really surprised. I thought the Ravens would have held on to the lead. They had a 24-9 lead going into the half, and then somehow, some way, the Browns, just showing why they are in the top echelon. Like those dark horse teams you got to watch for this season just because of the things they can do on both sides of the ball. Now, I know Deshaun Watson is still getting comfortable with the Cleveland offense, still finding his feet after being gone from the game a year and a half, 2 years, right? Because of the allegations that we won't talk about. But what he did in the second half, going 14-14, I think 160-some yards and a touchdown, that's something to say that maybe we're starting to see the reemergence of Deshaun Watson, coming off that shoulder injury, playing slow for the latter part of this year. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the Browns are able to do off this win versus a really good division opponent, because now instead of being 2 games behind, they're about just 1 game behind, and they have a game over the Ravens. But shout out to the Cleveland Browns, man. Like, they did their thing yesterday against the Ravens. And speaking of the Ravens, man, we've seen this time and time again where the Ravens will have a really good lead. The defense will be doing their job, and a pick and a fumble later by Lamar Jackson, and all of a sudden, like you have a ball game. If the Cleveland Browns would have just kicked that field goal and tied the game up 31-31, obviously, we probably could have talked about a different outcome for the game as far as a bigger lead by like 1 point maybe, which doesn't matter. But, just because these guys are division rivals and how close these games are, But the Ravens, man, I think this is just an anomaly just because the AFC North has just been beating up on each other all season. We know what it's, the Browns and the Bengals rivalry, the Bengals are a better team on paper, but the Browns just somehow have their number. We know what the Ravens and the Bengals represent, but, on paper, but the Ravens just seemingly have their number, right? So, in the playoffs because the Bengals didn't knock those guys off. So, again, we know how tight and competitive this AFC North is. I'm not really too concerned about the Steelers because, again, they're just one of those middling teams that, that happen to win a few games, but they're not really going to do much in the playoffs if they were to come around, right? Browns and Ravens game, that was one for the books. That was an instant classic. And going into the Houston Texans and Cincinnati Bengals game, that was something of that was one of the best games of the season. Because if you watch my last video, I was saying that if CJ Stroud can come in here to a rough environment in the nasty natty and do what he did yesterday to Cincinnati Bengals, he is most definitely a lock for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Leave your comments. If you believe differently or why you just agree with your boy, you know what I'm saying? But I think CJ Stroud is I think he's an official lock for Rookie of the Year. The guy has 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His QBR is 10th in the league, and they're already talking about him being in the MVP conversation. And it's just crazy how this MVP conversation is going, just because we know a certain quarterback in the NFC East is being talked about in these MVP conversations after losing a crucial game to your biggest division rival, and then you come in next week and you shellac a team that is clearly tanking, clearly a low-tier team in the league. I get it. It's any other Sunday, and you can't really count out any team in the NFL. But, again, we'll move to that after this, right? But C.J. Stroud, man, special kid. I'm going to get his jersey, bro, just because I have a feeling that they're going to make the playoffs just because of how C.J. Stroud is playing and how he plays. Bro, again, look at it like this. He came into Cincinnati. Cincinnati is not an easy place to play in these past couple years with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Higgins, Boyd, all those guys, man. It's not an easy place to play in. So for C.J. Stroud to come in and do what he did, now obviously there were some close moments in the game as you see him throw the interception with about 2.5, 3 minutes left in the game, giving the Bengals time. But hey, they held on to it and they came out with a win. And now you're having this guy talk about not only being a lock for the offensive rookie of the year, but now you're talking about him in MVP conversations. Something that's well-deserved. The man has been playing well all season. You know what I'm saying? And then overcoming those criticisms of the draft, from those 2S tests and all that, and his interview saying that if you don't believe in him, just watch. Well, I'm watching. I mean, 90,000 million of people watching what C.J. Stroud is doing, and a lot of America can agree that this kid is special and he deserves to be in the talks for being MVP for sure. Now the Bengals are going to have a tough task in their hand because I believe they have a Thursday game against the Ravens, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just confirm that right quick. It's the Bengals and the Ravens on Thursday. A lot of people will be watching that. So the Bengals, after dropping that game to the Houston Texans, they're 5-4. They're kind of at a must-win situation. Now, thankfully, they always play really well versus the Baltimore Ravens. So if your money is on the Bengals, I definitely go for the under just because, it's definitely going to be a defensive matchup for sure, just because we know what the Ravens defense brings with the versus the Bengals offense and vice versa. The Ravens offense versus that Bengals defense. With Jesse Bates, Cam Taylor-Britt, Eli Apple, those guys are playing really well in the secondary, despite what you've seen yesterday versus the Houston Texans. So very excited to see how both these teams are going to respond after coming off a loss. Because believe it or not, the Ravens have to win this game. They have to win this game because if they don't win this game and they go on a 2-game losing skid, that definitely brings question to Lamar's MVP case. It would just be a lot of trouble because then that hurts their division rankings, and now you give the Browns more of an opportunity to take that division lead, right? Because clearly, if it comes down between the Browns and the Bengals, the Browns would have that because they've already beat the Bengals. So they have that tiebreaker, right? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what's going to happen on Thursday night with the Bengals, how they can Bengals and the Ravens, and how they just respond to the horrible losses in the late ladders of the game they took, right? Now on to the next game, the Cowboys and the Giants. Okay, I didn't really want to talk about this one just because the Cowboys do this to as Kevin Wildes on First Things First. Chris Broussard said on First Things First about these teams, they're tomato can teams. The Giants are 2-8, same record as the New England Patriots. These guys are just waiting for the offseason to get that first pick in the draft. A lot of them are probably playing for that first pick in the draft, to see who's going to get Caleb Williams or Will Penix Jr. Out of Washington. So it's not really an impressive win. You've already blanked these guys in week 1 of the season 40-0, and then you come back and you blow them out again after losing a game that you probably should have won if Dak Prescott was any good at reading the middle of the field, but it just didn't happen like that. So now you're wanting us to put Dak Prescott in the MVP conversation for beating up on a team that everybody gets off on. Like, let's be real. The New York Giants are a terrible, terrible, terrible team. Terrible team. Everybody gets off on the New York Giants. I mean, they already have a question at quarterback. They're playing a guy who's apparently like just related to Danny DeVito, but doesn't play as big as Danny DeVito, obviously, right? I mean, Darren Waller's not in the game. Come on, like the kid was on the 28 passing plays that they drafted up for this kid. He was pressured on over half of them. He was sacked 5 times, and like, that's not even including the quarterback hits after he even gets the ball off. So like this kid was in hell all day. Saquon Barkley couldn't save him, you know. So I mean, the Cowboys just did what they were supposed to do. You know, they put up 40 points in these guys, probably a little excessive with that 49th point, but that's what they do. They run it up against very low tier, low quality teams that don't really have anything else to lose at this point because their record is so terrible. I mean, and the Cowboys are just going to do this again next week against the 1-7, 1-6 Panthers. I mean, but this is good though, because with their easy cupcake schedule in our gauntlet, that really starts with Kansas City, because it didn't start with the Dolphins and Dallas. It really starts with Kansas City, and I will be at that game. I'll film, a video there. I'll go live there as well, so y'all can check it out. But that's where our stretch begins. So Dallas is actually keeping us on our toes, by having this cupcake schedule. Now, this is not to say that the Cowboys are the threat right now in the NFC, because we're going to get to who the real threat is in the NFC. But yeah, they did what they were supposed to do. Giants have a lot of questions. They're clearly just going to just waste the rest of the season and go on to the offseason. Daboll's job is not likely going to be on the line just because of the circumstances. And then he did take them to the playoffs and win a playoff game in his first real season. So I think they're just going to look at a lot of the positionals, So Giants offseason is going to be very long. The regular season is already going to be very long because they still got 6-7 more games to go of these ass whoopings to take, and they're probably not going to win either of them. Because Danny Jones is gone for the rest of the season. You gave away your anchors on your defense, so I mean, you're just going to be giving up 40 points a game, probably a lot. Unless they play somebody like the Panthers. But moving on to the next game, who else? Let me see. Packers and the Steelers, not really cared too much about that, but it is kind of important though, because now the Steelers are 6-3, and now they're putting themselves in contention to take this division. And again, shout out to Mike Tomlin. Again, Mike Tomlin is once again showing why he's one of the premier coaches in this league, even though his team often doesn't reflect that. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely going to have another winning season. If he gets to 9 wins, he's definitely going to have another winning season, not warranting the questioning of his job or his replacement, what have you. So good job to the Steelers in that regard, even though they're really not going to do much. But I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. Let me look at the rest of the Steelers schedule, right? So they play the Browns next Sunday. I don't see them winning that game just because how good the Browns play. I know the Steelers got the Browns the first round, but that was just I think that was just an anomaly. I think the Browns will ride this momentum they took from beating Baltimore and beat the Steelers. The Steelers play the Bengals the Sunday after that. I mean, we'll see. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Bengals have had the Steelers number this past couple years. So, I mean, if you're a fan of history, I mean, and then they play the Cardinals. I'm curious to see how that goes because again, that will be Kyler Murray's fourth game back at that point. So we'll see, how good he is, even though the Cardinals really don't have that many high expectations right now, just because of their record right now. Patriots and the Steelers. The Steelers going to win that. Colts. Steelers going to win that. So yeah, I mean, just looking at their schedule, the Steelers definitely have an opportunity to run it up and get, it maybe sneak out 10 wins. If the Steelers get 10 wins, like that'll be an amazing feat for Mike Tomlin. Just because again, you're able to, get winning seasons, even though you're not really doing that much in the playoffs, just because of the amount of competition. But again, like you never know. You never know. It's just the Steelers don't have the quarterback to go the distance. No one really believes in Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky to really, really take these guys over the top. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments about that. But that's just what I think out of that game. The Packers, who cares at this point? They're a rebuilding team. Let's see the next game. 6 scores. Okay, the Titans and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, they broke that 4-game losing streak, and were able to come out of a win against the Tennessee Titans. Now, whether you want to count that as a quality win or not, just because the Titans quarterback is a rookie, the third guy on the depth chart, because again, you have Ryan Tannehill, you have Malik Willis, and now you got this guy, Will Levis. So if you want to count that as a quality win for the Buccaneers, I personally don't have a problem with that. Like I'll count it for them, just because again, I mean, like you just need something to go off of. Like you can't go on a 4-game losing streak. And then the division that the Buccaneers are in, with the Falcons. Hold on, let me see. Buccaneers. Go to the NFC. Yeah. See, and so them winning this game puts them a game behind the New Orleans Saints. For all intents and purposes, could definitely go on a 4-game losing streak after today. Yesterday, after losing to a Josh Dobbs led Minnesota Vikings team. So Tampa Bay still has a really good chance to run the numbers up on this one and really win that division and make their statement in the playoffs if they're able to make it. Like just because, again, like that division's so bad, So again, shout out to Baker Mayfield. He definitely got me my fantasy points. Thank you for that. The Browns and Ravens, we talked about that. 49ers and the Jaguars. If you watched my video yesterday, I said that if the 49ers were to lose this game and Brock Purdy plays well, they would just have questions for Steve Wilks and his defensive play calling, which has already become an issue if you come across a lot of media outlets. So looking at the 49ers, they blew these guys out the water. Obviously, 34-3. You got Deebo Samuel's back, and you got some really good pieces back on this team. They tried their best to get that record for Christian McCaffrey, but he's still tied for Hall of Fame with those 17 straight games, though, like with the touchdown, with 2 different teams, mind you. So like the 49ers look to be back. They beat a really good team in the AFC. So again, we'll see how they build off this one. I think the 49ers next game, what's their next game? They play the Buccaneers next. That'll be a really good game just because you have 2 really good defensive teams who are predicated on the run to release to like set up their pass. So I think that'll be a good game next week to watch, the San Francisco 49ers and the Buccaneers, even though the Buccaneers are probably 3-point favorites already, according to Vegas. But let me know what you think about that one. the 49ers are still a threat in the NFC despite their 3-game losing skid. And then when they come to Philadelphia December 3rd, man, it's definitely going to be a very physical game. I might get tickets to that game. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was there for the NFC conference game when we played them in Philadelphia. So that revenge game, like, it'd be crazy because I'm going to Kansas City, right? That's a revenge game in the Super Bowl. And then me going to the 49ers Eagles game, that's a revenge game for the NFC conference game. And you know what? I might just consider buying that ticket. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I might consider buying that ticket. But all in all, the 49ers still keep their hold as the second or third best team in the NFC, depending on how you rank the Lions. And speaking of the Lions, man, the Lions are definitely like the new threat. The Lions are definitely like the new threat in the NFC after the crazy win they had in LA versus the Chargers 41-38. The Detroit Lions seem to be all on board with Dan Campbell on both sides of the ball. You see what that guy Aiden Hutchinson is doing, making his case for Defensive Player of the Year or and even All Pro first team, really. And then Jared Goff is playing out of his mind, getting more and more comfortable in this Detroit offense with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, and that other running back they have that they got from the Bears. So yeah, the Eagles are definitely going to have to keep close tabs on the Lions just because we're 8-1, they're 7-2, and looking at their schedule, like they play the Bears next. They're going to do the Bears nasty, but you never know. That's a division game for them. So, I mean, that could go either way. But if you're a betting favorite, and a lot of you probably are, the Detroit Lions are a 10-point favorite right now. So, hey, man, if we end up going to Kansas City and we end up, winning, obviously we'll be 9-1, but the Lions winning that puts them at 8-2. So they're right on our heel. So that's why this 4-game stretch that the Philadelphia Eagles are about to go into is super important because their 4-game stretch involves the Bears, the Packers, and mind you, all these are division games. So these games could go either way. And although the Green Bay Packers are a middling team, they could very well come out and upset the Lions, especially because the problem with the Packers is not necessarily the coaching. It's just the mistakes these young guys keep making in crucial moments, which they can very well clean it up for a division. And then the Lions play the Saints. I'm not really high on the Saints, so I'm going to take Detroit in that one. They play the Bears again. They play the Broncos. Now, their only real stretch is from Christmas Eve all the way to the 7th of January, and they play the Vikings twice and the Cowboys. So, that'll be the 3 hardest games will be the last 3 games of the season. So, this 4-game stretch that they're going on right now, we definitely have to play our best ball to keep them from superseding us in this NFC. Taking away our chance to get the NFC title. And according to the NFL, we have a 70% chance of winning it. But to say the Detroit Lions are not a current threat right now, it's just an understatement, and it's completely false. They are a very much a threat. We need to watch out for them, and the Eagles need to play their best ball these next 4 weeks because compared to their cupcake schedule, they can easily go 4-0, So, just something to think about. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about that one, though. But again, hope you guys like this video, man. I really try my best to do these as much as I can for you guys. Again, hit that like, subscribe button on your way out, man. And we still got more content on the way. But till then, Cool Eagle out, yeah.